On February 16, 2026, the Miami Dolphins released Tyreek Hill. To the public, this looked like a franchise admitting defeat and losing a superstar. But if you look at the balance sheet, this wasn't a football decision, it was a bankruptcy prevention measure. Before this move, the Dolphins were sitting exactly $17.4 million over the NFL's $303.5 million salary cap. They were legally unable to operate, and the single biggest obstacle standing between them and solvency was one massive line item: Tyreek Hill's projected $51.1 million cap hit. This introduces us to the dead cap trap. In the NFL, you can fire a player, but you can't fire the money you've already paid them. By releasing Hill, the Dolphins didn't simply wipe the slate clean. They triggered a massive $28.2 million dead money charge. That is the brutal cost of doing business. It is a nearly $30 million check paid to a guy who won't play a single snap for your team. So why do it? Because the alternative was financial suicide. The Dolphins faced a binary choice: pay over $51 million for a 32-year-old receiver coming off a major knee injury, or eat a $30 million loss to save the franchise's future. Today, we are performing a financial autopsy on this deal to show how aggressive contract restructuring created a math problem that even the NFL's fastest player couldn't outrun. To understand how a contract becomes this toxic, we have to break down the mechanics of cap magic. The Dolphins didn't get here by accident. They got here through calculated gambles known as restructures. In 2024, the Dolphins needed quick cash, so they approached Hill with a restructure. They took his base salary, which hits the cap immediately, and converted it into a signing bonus. Why does that matter? Because a salary hits the books all at once, but a signing bonus can be prorated over the life of the contract. It feels like free money in the moment, but it's actually a high-interest loan against your future cap. The specific tool they utilize is called the void year. The Dolphins added 3 dummy years to the back end of Hill's deal. These are fake contract years where the player isn't under contract, but they exist solely to hold money. By doing this, they took about $7 million of cap hit and pushed it into 2027, 2028, and 2029. The problem is the exit strategy. When you cut the player, the bill comes due immediately. This is proration acceleration. When Miami released Hill, all that kicked the can money, every dollar stored in those void years, accelerated onto the 2026 ledger simultaneously. That is how you end up with a $28 million dead cap hit. It's the sum of all the savings from previous years finally hitting your bank account. But the real smoking gun was the option bonus. Hill's contract had a massive $15.85 million option bonus due in March. If the Dolphins kept him past the start of the league year, that bonus would have become fully guaranteed. This acted as a mechanical trigger. They had to decide cut him now and eat the dead money, or pay the bonus and commit to another year of cap gymnastics. They had already played this game. In 2023, they converted a roster bonus into a signing bonus to lower that year's hit. This is credit card cap management. You pay the minimum balance today, but the principal debt keeps compounding. Finally, there was the guarantees vesting schedule. Another $11 million of Hill's salary was set to become fully guaranteed on March 14th. By utilizing the pre-March 14th window, the Dolphins avoided an additional $16 million in liability. They chose the pain of dead money over the paralysis of a $51 million cap hit, proving that in the NFL, bad math hurts more than a bad roster. Now that we understand the mechanics of the contract failure, we need to zoom out and audit the acquisition cost itself. When you look at the Tyreek Hill trade through the lens of a corporate merger, the numbers are staggering. The Dolphins didn't just sign a free agent. They paid a massive premium to acquire the asset before they even negotiated the salary. To bring Hill to Miami, General Manager Chris Grier shipped 5 draft picks to Kansas City, a 2022 first-round pick, a second-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, and a 6th-round pick. In the currency of the NFL, that is the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company liquidating its entire R&D department to buy a single competitor. But the cost wasn't just draft capital, it was the subsequent contract extension that reset the wide receiver market at $30 million per year. When you combine the acquisition cost of 5 picks with the operational cost of the $120 million contract, the all-in strategy required a massive return on investment to be considered solvent. This brings us to the CEO scorecard. In business, if you leverage the company's future to acquire a star asset, that asset must generate immediate tangible revenue, or in the NFL's case, postseason success. On this scorecard, the Dolphins failed. Despite the highlight reels and the jersey sales, the Tyreek Hill era in Miami yielded 0 playoff wins. Compare this to the reallocation model utilized by the Kansas City Chiefs. When the Chiefs traded Hill, the prevailing narrative was that their offense would collapse. Instead, they took the capital Miami sent them, those draft picks, and the $30 million in cap space they saved, and they diversified their portfolio. They invested in a top-tier offensive line and a suffocating defense. The result? The Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls, while Miami struggled to advance past the wild card round. This exposes the fatal flaw in the Dolphins' star-dependent model. By concentrating so much financial weight on the top of the roster, specifically on Hill and quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, they lack the liquidity to build the necessary infrastructure around them. This is where the sunk cost fallacy destroyed their 2025 season. Last year, it was clear that Hill was an aging asset with declining durability. A cold-blooded hedge fund manager would have traded him at peak value before the 2024 season. Instead, the Dolphins doubled down, restructuring his deal to keep the window open. The result was a financial disaster. In his injury-shortened 2025 season, Hill caught just 21 passes for 265 yards before suffering a dislocated knee and torn ligaments. Because of the contract structure, the Dolphins were effectively on the hook for $35 million in cash due for a season where the production value was negligible. That is a disparity between pay and production that no salary cap can withstand. Furthermore, the opportunity cost was immense. That $35 million could have purchased 2 elite offensive guards and a starting linebacker, positions that were glaring weaknesses for Miami. The lesson here is brutal but clear. In a salary-capped environment, paying a premium for past performance rather than future production is the fastest way to bankruptcy. This brings us to the most counterintuitive concept in NFL finance. Sometimes burning money is the most profitable move you can make. To the average fan, cutting Hillier and eating $28.2 million in dead money looks like a failure. But in the front office, this is a strategic liquidation. It is the equivalent of a corporation selling off a non-performing division at a loss to stop the bleeding and free up cash flow for profitable ventures. Smart teams understand that dead money is actually a tool for competitive advantage if used correctly. Look at the Eagles' model of cap management under Howie Roseman. The Eagles aggressively use void years, just like the Dolphins did. However, the difference lies in the exit strategy. The Eagles structure their deals with pre-planned June 1st designations. This accounting trick allows a team to spread the dead money hit over 2 seasons rather than taking it all on the chin immediately. It smooths the exit ramp, ensuring that no single departure cripples the franchise's ability to field a competitive team. Contrast this with the 49ers blueprint. San Francisco also pays heavy top-end salaries, but they prioritize signing bonuses over option bonuses. This subtle distinction gives them flexibility. When they need to move on from a player, they can often restructure the remaining base salary without triggering a total cap implosion. They retain the ability to pivot, whereas the Dolphins' reliance on guaranteed option bonuses locked them into a rigid timeline. The Chiefs provided the ultimate proof of concept for the liquidation strategy. After trading Hill, they didn't try to find another $30 million receiver. They accepted the dead money hit from the trade acceleration and reallocated that financial energy into the aggregate. They realized that 3 $10 million players often provide a higher floor and more stability than one $30 million superstar. For Miami, the math on releasing Hill is undeniable. Yes, the $28.2 million dead cap hit hurts, but the release clears $51.1 million off the books, resulting in a net savings of $22.9 million for the 2026 season. That is $22.9 million they can use to sign 3 starters who are entering their prime rather than hoping a 32-year-old receiver can recover from an ACL tear. Furthermore, this move isn't really about 2026, it's about 2027. The Dolphins are staring down the barrel of a massive extension for Tua Tagovailoa. By taking the medicine now and clearing the books, they are essentially performing a corporate restructuring to ensure they have the liquidity to support their quarterback's prime years. They are choosing a year of financial pain to avoid a decade of mediocrity. So how do aspiring sports executives avoid falling into this same trap? We can boil this down to 3 golden rules of cap management. First, implement the 15% rule. No single non-quarterback player should ever exceed 15% of the total salary cap. Tyreek Hill's cap hit had ballooned to 16.8% of the Dolphins' total allowable spending. When one non-QB asset consumes that much oxygen, the rest of the roster suffocates. Second, establish strict restructure guardrails. The Dolphins got into trouble because they used void years without a limit. A disciplined GM should limit void years to a maximum of 2 or 3 seasons. This prevents the accumulation of unmanageable dead cap that extends far beyond the player's useful life. You never want to be paying for a player in 2029 who retired in 2026. Finally, you must have risk triggers. There should be mandatory exit strategies written into the organizational philosophy for any player crossing age 30 with a significant injury history. The moment a speed-reliant receiver suffers a lower body injury post-30, the divestiture process should begin. The ultimate metric for any front office is playoff cash versus star ROI. The data consistently shows that roster depth correlates higher with postseason revenue than top-heavy star power. The teams that consistently play in January are the ones that treat the salary cap not as a credit card limit to be maxed out, but as an investment portfolio that requires constant rebalancing. For the Dolphins, this $30 million mistake is a painful tuition payment, but for the rest of the league, it is a free masterclass in the dangers of prioritizing marketing over math.